instead they justify Israel violation and atrocities, calling them self-defense. Whether these acts occur against Iran or against the people of Palestine and Lebanon, who are suffering under Israeli systematic violence and oppressions. Their selective invocation of international law undermines the value of the United Nations as a whole. Adding to this audacity, these countries shamelessly ask Iran to restrain itself and ignore its rights to self-defense. This demand starkly contrasts with their earlier refusal to call on Israel to refrain from its aggression against Iran for the sake of regional peace and security. Their double standards are clear to the international community. Their supposed concerns for peace and stability are empty words when, for over a year, they have given Israel full political, financial, logistical, and weaponry support, enabling its continued atrocities, genocidal acts, and war crimes on Palestine, and now on the people of Lebanon. Madam President, the international community cannot and must not remain silent in the face of such violation. The price of this silence is evident in Palestine and Lebanon, where Israel's impunity perpetuates a vicious cycle of violence and instability across the region. We call upon the Council to condemn Israeli actions unequivocally and to hold it accountable for its systematic and recurrent violations of the international law, as well as for what it truly is, a calculated and sustained campaign of aggression and atrocious crime that not only destabilizes the region but also seriously threatening global security. The people of Iran, Palestine, and Lebanon are indeed the entire international community look to this council to uphold justice, safeguard the principle of the United Nations, and ensure that the rule of law prevails. We call on all nations, especially those in our region, to recognize their individual and collective responsibilities in safeguarding regional peace and stability. We extend our gratitude to the peace-loving countries, both in the region and beyond, that have condemned Israeli aggression, understanding the gravity of these actions and the threats they pose to all. The responsibility for this dangerous escalation lies squarely with the Israeli regime and certainly with those who enable it, foremost among them the United States, which remain Israeli primary and unwavering supporter in committing these grave atrocities and also paralyze this august body to fulfill the primary responsibilities. The United States' involvement in Israeli aggression through its provision of technical expertise and advanced military system to Israel has further instigated and emboldened Israel to conduct its aggressive attack against Iran. Therefore, the US government is complicit in Israeli aggression and will bear its consequences. Furthermore, the United States has already been complicit in the ongoing war crimes and genocidal campaign targeting civilian and civilian infrastructure both in Gaza and Lebanon. The vast majority of bombs Israeli drops on Gaza and Lebanon are US-made. In conclusion, Madam President, the Islamic Republic of Iran has consistently championed diplomacy as the pathway to addressing regional challenges and fostering peace and stability. However, as a sovereign state, the Islamic Republic of Iran reserves its inherent right to respond at the time of its choosing to this act of aggression, a right clearly affirmed under Article 51 of the UN Charter. Our response will be lawful and fully compliant with international law. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I now give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Madam President. Over the past year, Israel has made many promises to the 101 hostages still held by Hamas terrorists, as well as their families and loved ones. We swore that we will do all that we can to bring you home. to the terrorists who orchestrated and participated in the mass murder, rape, and kidnapping of Israelis, we pledge that justice would find them, no matter how long it took, how far they ran, how hidden their bunkers. To the civilians in our north who face unrelenting terror from Hezbollah at their borders, we vowed they would once again live safely and securely in their homes. They have our word that Israel will never rest until peace is restored, until every last terrorist is driven back from our borders. And finally, we addressed Iran directly in response to their brutal, calculated missile attacks on our civilian population. Almost 200 ballistic missiles aimed at cities, homes, and sacred places. We promised that their actions would not go unanswered. We assured them that we would choose the time and manner of our response, and that it would be painful. Those promises are being kept. Today, those who have sown terror and hate, Yahya Sinwar, Muhammad Def, Hassan Nasrallah, find themselves reunited in the darkest pits of hell. Their alliance in life was a pact of terror, and in death they face the consequences of their cruelty. Israel's enemies now understand that our promises are not empty. But let there be no misunderstanding. Our message goes beyond individuals, beyond the pounds. It is directed squarely at the Iranian regime, the puppet master behind these heinous acts. Iran's leaders chose to assault Israel, to destabilize the region and unleash chaos. They promised us destruction. We have answered with strength. No sovereign country would tolerate hundreds of ballistic missiles aimed at its civilian population. No responsible government would allow its people to remain under constant threat. On Friday night, Israel acted as any nation would to defend its citizens, secure its borders, and neutralize an immediate threat. The Israel Defense Forces executed precise, targeted strikes on Iranian military assets deep within Iran's territory. We struck missile manufacturing facilities responsible for creating the very weapons that were launched against our civilians. Every aspect of this mission was crafted to remove the immediate threat, while minimizing any harm to civilians. The contrast of the manner in which we executed our operation with Iran's missile attack could not be starker. While Iran recklessly aimed their missiles at entire civilian communities, cities, Tel Aviv, Haifa, Israel utilized the most precise munitions in the world to focus solely on military targets. Israel remains resolute. We will continue to act in defense of our people with precision, strength, and an unbreakable commitment to the safety of our citizens. For years, Iran has deliberately escalated its efforts to destabilize the Middle East, arming and directing their terror proxies, from Hezbollah in Lebanon to Hamas in Gaza, from the Houthis in Yemen to the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. Iran has seeded violence, chaos, and destruction throughout the Middle East. But this violence is not limited to Israel's border. It threatens regional stability, global security, and economic stability. For years, Iran has openly violated numerous Security Council resolutions, chief among them Resolutions 2231, 1701, and 2216. Iran's ambitions reach far beyond Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. We all know, they seek dominance across the region and beyond, using terror as their primary tool to intimidate, destabilize, and assert influence. The weapons they fund and distribute, the terrorists they arm and train, and the chaos they deliberately ignite do not respect borders or politics. Today, it is us. It is Israel in their crosshairs. But tomorrow, it could be any of the nations represented here. Don't be mistaken. Many of my Muslim colleagues know it very well, that today they are targeting our capital. Tomorrow, it can be your capital. Every country within range of their proxies is at risk, and their terror network is global. 2 massive missile attacks, first in April, then again in October, each unleashed hundreds of ballistic missiles aimed directly at Israeli civilians. And yet, in the face of the Iranian regime's flagrant acts of aggression, this council has failed to find its moral voice. The usual course calling for de-escalation is not only weak, but profoundly misguided. Iran's regime has been emboldened by each muted response, each call for restraint, each failure to impose real consequences on the Ayatollah. This hypocrisy is not lost on Israel, nor on the people we protect. For months, we have warned this body of the threat Iran poses, not just to Israel, but to the broader international community. We have provided evidence, pleaded for decisive action, and faced a wall of silence. Does this council not see the gravity of Iran's ambitions? You know, we heard the words diplomacy, negotiations. Can't you see what they really want? How can you equate Israel's defensive measures with Iran's unprovoked assaults on our people? This is not just morally bankrupt. It is a grotesque distortion of reality. The failure to hold Iran accountable is an endorsement of their tactics. This council's silence in the face of Iran's aggression sends a message to Tehran that its actions will go unchecked, that it may continue down this path without consequence. Israel does not seek war. Our mission, our commitment is peace. But peace cannot be achieved under the shadow of missiles and the threat of eradication. Our response was measured and proportionate. We took every precaution to focus our operations on military targets, ensuring minimal collateral impact. Israel's commitment to restraint stands in stark contrast to the wholesale violence of Iran's attacks. Our actions reflect our responsibility not only to our citizens, but to the entire region. Every missile we destroy, every weapons store we dismantle, every terrorist we eliminate is a step towards the stability that every nation represented in this hall claims to desire. To Iran's leaders, take this as a warning. Israel has shown restraint, but from here on, you will see only strength. Any further aggression will be met with consequences that are swift and decisive. For every missile you launch, for every terror cell you sponsor, there will be reckoning. Cease your reckless pursuit of dominance through violence and terror. Israel has acted to protect its people and its sovereignty, and we will not hesitate to do so again. And to the members of this council, we call on you to act. Enough empty words. Enough statements of concern. The Iranian regime must face real consequences for its actions. We demand immediate and crippling sanctions targeting Iran's military and economic infrastructure. Designate the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization it is. Isolate Iran diplomatically, but most importantly, take the necessary measures to prevent a lunatic regime from attaining nuclear capabilities. Imagine who will sit here in a few years if, God forbid, they will have nuclear capabilities. The world cannot afford to ignore the threat Iran poses. This is no longer a matter of words, it is a matter of action. Israel's promises are more than words. They are our unbreakable covenant with those we protect and a warning to those who seek our harm. We have acted on these promises, and we will continue to do so. To our enemies and to our friends alike, understand this. When Israel vows to defend its people, those promises will be kept, no matter the cost. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Israel. I now give the floor to the representative of Iraq.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to thank the delegation of Switzerland for their efforts and for responding to hold this meeting. We would also like to thank the delegations of Algeria, Russia, and China for requesting to hold this meeting. We also thank Mr. Khaled Khiari, the Assistant Secretary General, for his briefing. Madam President, providing a political cover to the Israeli occupation authorities, invoking legitimate reasons that contravene the provisions of international law and UN Charter, and the inability of the Security Council to take decisive steps to put an end to the attacks and violations made by the Israeli occupation forces, all these emboldened Israel to move forward in launching attacks, perpetrating crimes, and enjoying full impunity. This aggressive approach started in the occupied Palestinian territory, and it has expanded to include Lebanon and Syria, and the latest of which is the act of aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Israeli military operations continue to violate the sovereignty and territorial integrity of these countries on many occasions and in different international fora, including this very council. Iraq has warned of the dangerous consequences of the silence of the international community vis-à-vis the Israeli aggressive behavior, which continues without restrictions or accountability. Madam President, Iraq strongly condemns the Israeli attack on Iranian territory, which represents a blatant violation of the sovereignty of Iran. It is a violation of the provisions of international law and the UN Charter. Iraq stands in solidarity with the Islamic Republic of Iran. We reaffirm that this act of aggression is a dangerous escalation that has adverse consequences for peace, security, and stability in the region. It could expand the conflict and drive this already suffering region towards a dangerous precipice, and it threatens to increase tensions. Iraq renews its firm and principled position for a ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. We will continue to work at the regional and international level to support stability in the region. Madam President, Iraq strongly condemns the blatant violation of the Israeli occupation authorities when their warplanes violated Iraq's airspace and sovereignty, when they used Iraq airspace to launch an act of aggression on the Islamic Republic of Iran on the 26th of October. The government of Iraq reaffirms that we will continue to mobilize at the UN and international level to confront these violations. The Iraqi government remains committed to the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Iraq. We will not allow for our airspace or territory to be used to launch attacks on other countries, especially countries in the region with whom we have relationships based on mutual respect and common interest. This position reflects the policy of the government of Iraq to maintain stability in the region by preventing the use of our territory in regional conflict. We will continue to support the resolution of conflict through dialogue and mutual understanding. In conclusion, Madam President, given these events, it is necessary for the Security Council to shoulder its responsibility in maintaining international peace and security, in taking clear and serious steps to put an end to these acts of aggression. We call for an immediate cessation of all acts of aggression, to respect the sovereignty of member states of the United Nations. We ask for reassurances that such violations will not be repeated. We ask to put an end to the occupation and guarantee security and stability in the region. We reaffirm that respecting national sovereignty of states is one of the pillars of international peace and security. Any violation of this sovereignty undermines efforts for peace and jeopardizes security and stability. We do hope that the Security Council will take the proper measures to make sure that member states will trust once again this international order. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Iraq, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, in its frantic quest to set the region ablaze and start a large-scale war, the Israeli occupation entity launched on the morning of Saturday, October 26, an attack on the Islamic Republic of Iran on a number of targets in 3 Iranian provinces, killing 4 military personnel. This Israeli aggression represents a flagrant violation of the international law, the UN Charter, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iran. It is yet another episode in a series of Israeli attacks on Iran, which include an aerial strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus last April, and the assassination of an official guest in the capital, Tehran, last July. The Syrian Arab Republic condemns the Israeli act of aggression on Iran. It represents the occupation entity's utter disregard of international law and its continued criminal approach against the states and peoples of the region. We support Iran's legitimate right to self-defense and to protect its land and citizens. This right is enshrined in international law and Article 51 of the UN Charter. We stand in solidarity with Iran in the face of this act of aggression. Madam President, the Israeli aggression on Iran coincided with an Israeli aggression on Syrian territories, following an intensification by the Israeli occupation entity in the last few months of its malicious attacks on residential buildings and densely populated neighborhoods, on civilian infrastructure and border crossings. These attacks have killed dozens of citizens and injured others, and they have terrorized civilians. We warn that this large-scale Israeli aggression knows no limits or controls and threatens international and regional peace and security. Its consequences on the region and beyond will be catastrophic. In this vein, we condemn the financial support in billions of dollars provided by Western states to the Israeli occupation entity. They are providing it with all sorts of lethal weapons and thousands of tons of bombs and ammunition, taking the lives of tens of thousands of civilians, including women and children, destroying residential neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, UN premises, economic facilities and infrastructure that took long years to build. We also condemn declarations by some Western officials claiming Israel's quote-unquote alleged right to self-defense. They are impeding the Security Council. We stress that such financial, military, political, and media support makes these states complicit in Israel's crimes. It gives the occupation authorities the feeling that they are above international law. It emboldens the Israeli authorities to continue committing their genocide against the Palestinian people, to continue their barbaric aggression on brotherly Lebanon, to continue launching attacks on the states of the region, including my country, Syria. Once again, we call upon the Security Council to take immediate action and decisive action to stop the occupation entity and put an end to its aggression and violent crimes which threaten peace and security in the region and beyond. We stress the need to hold Israeli war criminals accountable and to make sure they do not enjoy impunity. In conclusion, we stress the need to implement the relevant Security Council resolutions on the Israeli-Arab conflict to bring an end to the Israeli occupation of Arab territories, including the occupied Syrian Arab Golan. Thank you, Madam President.
Je remercie le représentant de la République arabe syrienne.
I thank the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic. There are no further names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.